Brothers and sisters, for too long, the truth had not been told. And so, the Me Too movement has emerged. There have been revelations of Catholic bishops and church leaders covering up sexual abuses by priests. We see people disrespected in many ways, in many different settings. And those in authority have very often chosen not to speak, not to see, not to listen to the cries of humiliation and anguish. Words need to be spoken. Words of outrage and expose, but also words of apology, sorrow, compassion, healing, and a dedication to change. As Jesus said that seemingly magic word, Ephatha, the mute man's ears were opened. The man who was not speaking clearly could hear like he had never heard before. And then he could speak, where up until then, he had been virtually speechless. That's still the case. It's not enough for the words of truth to be spoken. It's not enough for the words of deep emotion to come spewing out. We need to listen. Our ears need to be opened. No denials, no excuses, but compassionate listening. Listening with our hearts. That is the foundation for action, for justice, and for changing systems that lead to such evils. We do live in a world where there's plenty more that needs to be said, but it remains unspoken. Plenty more needs to be listened to and absorbed within our hearts. Words of appreciation, so simple, so local, so down home. Our Oktoberfest reminds us of that. There have been so many generous volunteers who have given large chunks of their time to make this a wonderful festival this weekend. Even through this morning, in the rain, volunteers are out there working, restoring our parking lot to something like its usual appearance. In these challenging times for the priesthood, I'm very grateful for the many expressions of gratitude that I have heard from many parishioners. It's a day of gratitude as folks are saying, it's wonderful to be a member of the Catholic Church. I'm going through the RCIA. I want to be confirmed. I want to be baptized. I want to be a member of this church. How important it is for us to appreciate the value that others place in the means that we use, the connection we have as a community, as we come to know Jesus and become disciples, and to live with joy, and to make a difference as we belong to this flawed but yet very, very wonderful church. Words of appreciation. In truth, the foundational stance of any prayer is that of thanksgiving. We pray in our Eucharist. It's a thanksgiving prayer. So often when we lift our minds and our hearts to our God, it's words of thanksgiving. We live in a world where plenty more needs to be said, but remains unspoken. Words of invitation. We invite you in many ways to take the next step towards becoming a disciple. We invite you to a variety of events of fellowship. We invite you to learn more about Jesus. We invite you to that joy that comes with helping out with events like our Oktoberfest, a participation that makes the Oktoberfest magnificent. Even as we pray, we have words and thoughts and feelings which remain unexpressed. Our God knows the secrets of our hearts. Our God knows our worries and our frustrations and our angers, and we hear best when we are honest with God. We do have wonderments and questions and a sense of powerlessness as we face the mysteries of life. Our God is with us in the shadow times of our prayer. Like the prophets of old, we have words of challenge to a world that is full of people compromised by their individualism. We have words of challenge to a world ruining itself for the future at the expense of making the present moment cater to our whims. We are involved in international conflicts, not to protect people who are oppressed, but to protect our national economic interests. We hear the words of Jesus, Ephatha, be open, roar if you need to, but also keep listening, because yours is not the only voice that needs to be heard. Brothers and sisters, we live in a world hungry for civil discourse, for civil arguments, for civil conflict resolution, for civil correction, for civil conversation. As I close this homily, I'd like to suggest 4 aspects of a civil discourse. Number 1, prayer and thought, and even rehearsal, are the best precedent to the spoken word. Second, the goal is beyond oneself. It's not about winning and getting the other person to concede a point. That's not what civil discourse is about. Number 3, reject the hit and run approach. Trust the dialogue. Very often, we need to trust when we hear things we don't want to hear. No matter how clumsy the dialogue might be, trust it. Number 4, listening is more than half of civil dialogue. Listening means that we do not plan our response while another is speaking. I've just given these 4 points. I don't expect anybody to write them down or have them just kind of crafted inside your head. And I say that because many of you know other tips. The key is to use what we know as we seek to serve the truth and as we seek to respect one another.